Okay, good morning, everybody. It's 8:30. It's time to call the meeting of September 16th to order. And the first item of business is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Moving into citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard today on items not on the agenda? It doesn't appear to be so, we will move on. Minutes from September 2nd and 9th.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. And we do have the weekly bills before us.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll move on to item number 2, a request to fill overcrowding officer resignation, or reintegrate officer reintegration advanced planning.
Good morning.
Officer Julie, good morning.
Yes, we have a vacancy in our overcrowding/reintegration advanced planning position. This person took another job with the railroad. So what I'm asking for is to be able to go ahead and replace that position. We would replace it from somebody in-house. It is a job assignment. And then in turn, we'd hire a corrections officer to replace the
Okay,
RAP
so
officer.
you want to do both? You want the backfill position included in this?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right.
There will be a savings for us of about $6,000.
Oh, okay, all right.
Move to approve.
I'll second that question.
Okay,
Sure.
we have a motion. Is it John?
What does this officer do? What is the,
What they do, well, it's supposed to be a 50% overcrowding, 50% RAP officer, and right now it's more like 70-30, 70% doing overcrowding stuff. So that entails the bookings, the releasings, organizing people to get them in and out of the county. And then the RAP portion is to, we have a program where we try to reintegrate people back into the community. We find people who are going to be released who are locally here, and we try to help them succeed on the outside by setting them up with housing, appointments maybe with like mental health or medical, as well as jobs.
And we had a briefing on that here a while back, and the success of that has been pretty good, hasn't it?
It's been very good. It actually almost pays for the salary, full-time salary. So
Okay.
Thank
So the whole idea there is to reduce recidivism in the jail, right?
exactly,
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad that's working.
yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Most great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Have a good day. Okay, it's 8:40. Are you doing this, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, our next topic is the adopt resolution for aquatic invasive species prevention aid. And we got Brian Berg and Tim Magnuson. Good morning, Tim. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. What you have before you is a resolution for the aquatic invasive species prevention aid. If you recall, the last legislative session allocated some funds to be spent for the education and eradication of the aquatic invasive species. And what they are requiring, to make that money available to the counties, then they want a program and identifying what you're going to do with that money. And they also asked for the counties to have a designated department. And of course, Tim Magnuson here, being our planning zoning director, he just jumped to the front of the line and said, I'll do that.
You were in the military and you still volunteer?
No, I used to do it there too, though.
Oh, okay.
So what you have before you is a resolution that basically outlines what is required of the law, the fact that we want to partner with Red River Basin that will implement the programs, and we are designating our planning and zoning department as the department or the contact for the funds and things. So I think I've kind of touched on all of the elements that resolution does without reading the elements. And just for the public's sake, In 2014, we are allocated $8,515, and then in 2015, we're allocated $18,114. And what the river basin is, and I think Commissioner Everett could probably speak greater to that since he is really associated with the Red River Basin, they want to really look at the educational part of it. And we don't have a lot of lakes here, but we have a lot of people that go to the lakes, and so they're going to target for the educational aspect of it.
Well, I think that, I think that's good. So are we committing the entire 8515 to the Basin Commission then, or what's, how?
5,000.
Huh?
5,000.
5,000
Right.
was for that
was
purpose?
5,000.
And then we've still got the balance of that to use within our county as we want. Are you going to come to us with, or what, you get some ideas on that?
Well, I need to talk with the Basin Commission and see what direction they're going. We have 4, I believe. I think they calculated our allocation based on 4 landings and the number of trailer parking spots. We actually have 5 landings. They left one out for whatever reason. Could be because it's flooded and you can't park anything there. So, we've got public landings, but we also have some places where people launch boats in Clay County that aren't considered public landings, but there's a substantial number of launches there anyway on an annual basis. That could utilize signage and that sort of thing.
How about on the red itself?
Well, one of the launches that was counted in Clay County was the Johnson Park.
Okay, so that's being counted
That's
as one
being
of them.
counted in as part of the county.
So that would be signed as part of this deal?
Yes, I haven't been up to that launch this year, but I know it. Well, I think the public landings all have at least one sign related to the aquatic invasive species issue.
Because they get used a lot.
Yes, that one gets used quite a bit. And I know that there's a push at the state level to revamp their aquatic invasive species thing. People, I went to a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and people said signage is a wonderful thing, but the way the state does it, their signs are so subdued that they put them up and you really got to look for them, and even when you see them, you don't necessarily get what they have to say. And it was interesting, the generational spread of this whole thing. One of the state's big pushes is don't let hitchhikers,
Right.
hitchhike. And one of the presenters said, that's all well and good, but she said, my 8-year-old daughter asked me one day, she said, what's a hitchhiker? So the state may have to revamp their terminology there, yeah, because, I know what a hitchhiker was, and a lot of people do, but the younger generation is not necessarily aware of that, so.
Okay. All right, so you're going to be kind of coming up with some education. I would assume the balance you're also looking at using as in an educational manner for Clay County's people and
Right.
in our.
The basin, the Red River Basin Commission will be doing educational work too, that they'll spread out. I believe they picked up 5 or 6 counties that they're going to be working with. I
Yes.
think. So they'll be doing education, but we'll be doing some coordination with them to make sure that some of the places they may not think of, get touched.
And so, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the 2015, the 18,000, how much of that are we looking at? Has the basin talked to us? Because I'm assuming the 5,000 still is from the 2014 dollars. What do we got planned for 15 then?
That I don't know.
Mr. Chair, I'd assume the basin is going to ratchet up their request as
I
well.
would think so. We need
Yes.
to talk to them, though, and figure out.
Right, but also, for example, Tim attended that training on the aquatic species, and, we expect to utilize some of those dollars for that kind of expenses as well, because...
Because we have, we do have several active lakes. I mean, part of Turtle Lake is
Yes.
certainly in Clay
Right.
County too.
Turtle Lake didn't count for us because their public landing's actually in Becker County, so.
Yeah.
But
But it's still of interest to us.
It's still of interest, and then you do have a launch on the west side, actually where Greg Anderson lives, that it's his, but there could be.
Multiple people
He doesn't
using it.
allow other people to utilize it, so. Any of those types of facilities should have some signage for sure.
John.
We have a couple of other organizations that have been working. One is the 4-H and their program with their aquatic,
The monitoring program?
Yeah, monitoring. And then the River Watch
Right.
organization with youth from the school. So those might be possibilities too, to assist them in their work, if that's what the whole program would allow or whatever. So a lot of things I think we could look at with the Basin Commission and see what they're planning to do.
And, the money that we're getting, like I said, based on 4 launches is not much. At the workshop I went to, a representative from Cass County was talking, and he said over the last year and a half, they've been going through a process to do an aquatic invasive species plan, all sorts of stuff. And of course, the planning process got completed. They have a plan. It's been adopted by the county board. And the county board said, oh, by the way, we're not going to give you any money to implement it anyway. Now they have over $250,000 that's been dropped in their lap this year to implement that plan and bring in lots of different organizations to do that. They have a lot of lake associations. I think we only have one.
Okay. Did we have a motion?
Yeah, there's a motion and a
Oh,
second.
okay. Right.
There it is.
Okay.
No,
there's no-
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it, so now you're right, Brian.
Jumping the gun there.
I thought you had.
I want to keep it 100% right.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the resolution. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Brian.
Mr. Sheriff, if I may.
You may.
Steal 1 minute.
You may.
I handed out and kind of put this together at the end of the week. Lori, actually, it's a format that she does. It's on the budget, and I handed it out to you. And what it is, it's the revenue and the expenses. It's a summary sheet as of today. Or, I'm sorry,
where'd you?
I laid it right up
Oh.
top there,
Oh.
I think. Yeah. And if you'll see way over on the, well, let's go down the middle column first. You'll see in about the 4th box up on the top ledger there, it says 2014 percentage of the budget, and that is the revenue first. Those first 4 columns are the revenue that have been collected so far this year. The revenue will run behind collections of the percentage of the year. We're at about 67% of the year. This was through till the 1st of September. If you notice down on the bottom, that this report was run on September 11th. And then over on the right side column, you go down there and it'll show the percentages of the budget that has been expended for these.
So the revenues are running at 52 and expenditures at 59.
Yes,
As a
yeah,
total.
you jumped to the bottom, that's
Well,
very
yeah,
good,
I'd just like to
absolutely.
go to the bottom
Yes,
line.
yes, and your revenues will run behind your
Yeah.
expenditures, and.
So that's not, but that's why we always keep money in the bank.
That's exactly right, and because you've only collected 1/2
Right.
of the taxes. And then if you, if you notice, I just highlighted a couple of their planning and zoning, the revenues were at 2,188, that's the dollars of the.
Flood money?
Flood money that came in. And then you'll also notice emergency management is 147% of expenditures, and that was because you approved a study that he is going to be reimbursed for, and that money has not come in yet, so that'll balance off. The other one, the county public defender, we're running a little bit ahead on expenditures there, and I did increase for 2015, the revenue, or the budgeted amount to 85,000 there, because we're running a little bit ahead there.
What's
So,
the internal accounting?
I would say, and I haven't talked to Lori about that.
Is that audit
I think that's
fees?
the auditing, yes, which we've already completed for this year, so.
Yeah. So,
We're in pretty good shape all the way.
so even though it shows 85%, it's pretty much done.
It's pretty much done. And that's the same way with, if you see these 100% down here,
Mhm.
that means that we've probably given them their full allocation of what they requested, so. And then sometimes too, we expend dollars at the beginning of the year for memberships and things, so we
Yeah.
spend it out right away. And the back 2 pages, or the back side of what you have is just then the road and bridge and social services, and they're all running within that framework as well. So just want to take a minute, you'd asked for that, if you want to go over those figures, and you have any questions next time or something, that would be great, but it's looking good.
What is,
Well-
why is, oh, excuse me.
No,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Frank, go ahead.
Why is Road and Bridge, why have they got so much more revenue than expenditures already? Do we pay money for that money?
Maybe
coming
last
in?
year's,
See
Yes.
what, and that's part of the deal, Frank, is the road and bridge, there's always delays, and so some of the revenues that we're reporting this year are actually revenues from last year, but
Oh,
we
okay.
have to report them this year.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's just
thank
the
you.
way the state accounting works.
We kind of have to pay close attention to the expenditures in some of those, and because the revenues filter into it.
If you recall, when we were doing our budget work, the road and bridge showed a negative $1.5 million, I think it was, for 2013, and it's because those 2013 revenues couldn't be recorded until 2014, and so now in 2014, we're seeing revenues higher. That's part of what that is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Okay, we'll move on to our next item. Steve, come on up. West Central Regional Juvenile Center is looking to request a juvenile counselor position. You have a couple things for us today.
Yes.
We'll start with that one.
We recently had a resignation in our non-secure unit and are just looking to refill that position. It's in our 2014 budget and we also would be seeing a small savings even with a replacement in that position.
You'll be hiring at a lower.
Lower rate, yes, or step.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
move to honor Steve's request.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
second.
Second by John. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, Steve, now you want authorization to replace a gym floor. Tell us about it.
We have a variety of different issues in our gym floor. It's actually it's not a tile floor, it's laid out, it's all one piece, and we've had some different holes that have popped up in the floor, and we've tried to have some replacement solutions there, and we haven't been able to have a long-term possibility there of saving the floor. Our concern, of course, is liability for our kids. So we had two different representatives, one Backyard Sports and Deck Masters come in to present presentations on their products. Basically what we're looking at is they're 18-inch squares, that plastic squares that sit on rubber placement, kind of I guess what a lot of the schools and churches are going to now, and basically will provide us a good safe floor for our kids to be playing on. We did take this request to our advisory board from our 10 counties. Our advisory board actually approved us to spend up to $24,000 for a floor. The two quotes that we received were Deck Masters came in at $15,512, and Backyard Sports came in at $13,200. They also, in that quote, are throwing in, we have some issues with our volleyball. Our volleyball standards are what caused the holes in our floor, and they've come up with a solution that's going to save the floor, and it's going to be a lot safer for our youth also. So, as I mentioned, under this request of $13,200, the secure portion would be paying 67% of that at $8,844. The non-secure program has a total cost of 33% of that, which is $4,356. I've talked with Lori and Mr. Berg about how that would be paid for. And actually today before you, we have two options. We have the first option of what we've talked about with Lori and Mr. Berg, that this would be paid from a capital improvement fund and then be viewed as an asset and then depreciated over the life expectancy, which is 16 years, which would roughly cost $272 per year for the floor. The other option the board would have is based on the resignation that he just voted to fill. We have a cost savings of $4,006 proposed for that position. So that would be the other option that we would have, and it would just about cover that entire cost.
Okay. So the 67%, that's actually being paid by the 10-member counties?
Correct.
And they've already agreed to supporting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the 33%, that's the non-secure, which is strictly at Clay County.
Yes.
And Brian, on the capital improvement fund, where are we sitting with that, with everything else that we've done now? Or, because I'm assuming we had to take some dollars from that for the DMV project.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're probably, we're still working on final totals because the bills are still coming in, but we will still probably have about $180,000 or $170,000 in the capital improvement fund. So we could certainly take it out of there, the 4,000.
Okay,
Certainly would apply.
But in that capital improvement fund, we had multiple pages of products and we ranked them for completion, right?
Yes.
And can we get a report on where that is and what we've accomplished compared to what our goals were, and what's been done and what's remaining to do with that? I don't know that we need to rush into determining where this money is going to come from, on our portion. I think we could probably safely assume, because we've already approved your budget with that, and now you've got that savings in it, we're going to come up with the money one way or the other.
Right.
But before we commit to the money coming out of the capital improvement fund, I'd like to know what else that we had already anticipated doing and still might want to do.
Yep.
With that, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And that's exactly what Georgia's been working on right now, is summarizing and yielding what we have left on it. And I can just tell you, though, that we'll bring that to you, but the evaluation that we did was like a 20-year evaluation of roofs and different things, and it was the first 5 years. I think we've completed every task on that first 5-year.
I think the board should get a report on that.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I would move, though, that we authorize the replacement of Jim Floor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right.
Mr. Chair, can I just have one brief minute just to give you a quick update on the Fargo?
Who do you think you are, Brian Berg? Yes, you can.
As you know, we've been working with Fargo and looking at the possibility of entering an agreement with them in holding their secured residence. We've had a variety of different meetings between the representatives over the last months. And one of the issues that both of our legal teams were concerned with, while our state representatives from Interstate Compact had addressed that taking kids across state line was acceptable, we were looking for a position statement from the National Interstate Compact Association, and last week we did receive that. And so that's kind of the last hurdle. Hopefully now, as far as that goes, we've been working with Jenny Schmarza on amending our cooperative service agreement, and that we're looking to send that out to our membership in the next week, probably.
Okay.
So hopefully by our advisory board meeting on October 16th, we'll have a.
So we're still on track to maybe start this January 1 then?
Yes.
Right. Good, that's excellent. And at that point, we still have to work out the details with the annual dollar amount and the education piece and all
The
that
education
stuff.
piece is the last hurdle. Otherwise, I think they've at least presented us with the number of beds they'd like to purchase.
And can you update Grant and I prior to the 16th so that we know what's been talked about, so that when we go into that full committee, we have all the details?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thank you
That's
very
good
much.
news. Thank you. Yep. Okay, attendance at the 2014 Board of Equalization, Appeal of Equalization Training Courses. Brian?
Mr. Chair, you have in your packet a list of the locations and when these training courses are going to take place. I know Lori said we only have currently one that has received the training, and I think Commissioner Everett's expires November 1st, I believe. We would really like to see two, if possible, or Lori, Vicki and I talked about this, and we really would like to see two, so that we make sure we have a person available for those, because it's required when you do the Board of Equalization.
I know, and typically we try to not have candidates who are up for reelection do that, as opposed to members who we know are going to be here for 2 more years.
I'd be willing to serve on that board.
Okay. You do the training?
Yeah, I'll go to the training.
Okay.
I mean,
And I'll go to the one in Hubbard County. You can maybe register me for that. I think that's October 15th, so.
Well, we got that covered. Got Frank and Grant will do that.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
All right. Committee reports. We'll go to the other side. Grant, we want to start with you today.
Okay, let's see. I had a Greater Fargo Moorhead Economic Development Corporation Executive Committee meeting last week. Nothing real, just a lot of things going on with the EDC, but just a lot of general business there. Our biggest struggle is trying to get enough people to the meeting. Everybody that's on the board is so busy that it's tough to get a quorum for that particular committee. Let's see, and then I had a Northwest Regional Radio Board meeting, and we're kind of in a situation there. We're losing our director for that, and so we're going to be in the process of looking for somebody new. The board did approve us going after grant money for Clay County becoming involved in Armor, the statewide radio system. And let's see, yesterday, both Frank and I attended. We had a Heartland Trail meeting with MetroCog, and those meetings have become well attended. We've got a lot of people working on that project, and one of the things we talked about was the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission is in the process of going through applications, which we did apply for from Clay County, funding for parks and trails, and so we'll probably know this fall sometime whether the Heartland Trail is a priority for that money. And there could be some significant money there for us in the next several years. So the only issue for us there is that right now the Heartland Trail is designated as a statewide trail, but we can change that and designate it a trail of regional significance. And if we do that, there'll be some issues we have to discuss, because that would mean, we would have to, maintain it. But I think right now, from my understanding around the state, the state has built trails all over the state, but they haven't got any money to maintain them anyway, and so that's been an issue statewide for trails. So, but I think it's an opportunity. The other option is to continue to go after bonding money, and that's going to be pretty difficult, I think, in the years to come. So this has a possibility for us to to get that trail actually up and moving. And MetroCog is being very helpful, and they're working on the design and actual route the trail is going to go. And so in the next few months we'll have more information on that too. So that was it for me.
John?
Last week there was, excuse me, a couple meetings on Tuesday with the diversion. First one was out at the engineer's office in South Fargo that considered the proposal. We had a request for proposal for studying the effect of crop insurance on the easement values of the land. And we had a couple of proposals, and we recommended, and it was later passed by the land management and the authority, that we would contract with NDSU for that study. There was one other proposal that was considered, and that one really was working with it was a engineering firm, but they were working with the University of Wisconsin on it. So we're pleased that NDSU had such a good proposal, and we think that will be very helpful. Then we had the board meeting here that morning as well, but then afterwards we had a diversion briefing for the candidates for office, the Corps of Engineers and the authority representatives presented the history of the project and tried to get us all up to date on what's going on. That was, I think, a very helpful briefing. That afternoon, went out to Fair Hills for that aquatic species tour. And
On a
Brian,
cold day.
On a cold day. Brian was with, and Brian just had his suit coat on, so he was colder than I was. I had my winter coat on at least, so it was a cold ride, but it was very interesting. We, no matter where they threw out the rake and pulled in, we could find all kinds of the zebra mussel on the grass, on the weeds and so on that were pulled up. So the Pelican Lake is definitely heavily infested, and we heard that day a number of, in the discussion following, we heard a number of things that are being attempted, and to try to get people to be more responsible to watching these hitchhikers, like Tim talked about. But it was all the way from having recordings at the landings where it would be triggered by the activity there, and the voices would tell people, remind people to clean their boats off and all this stuff, to having volunteers standing there. And it was interesting, the discussion, and it was Otter Tail County that they talked about. They have, if they have volunteers in uniform, that people, and they're standing there, people are just very responsive. Boy, they just look over everything and watch it close. If those people that are there just in civilian clothes, people whip out of the lake and go back and forth and don't pay attention. But so it does work. It's kind of like having a highway patrol sitting on the side of the road. Everybody slows down, and that was interesting. That it's going to take a lot of work to get the public to fully participate and participate in this whole thing. But there's good that we've got money now from the state to work on this, and I think there's some good possibilities of improvement. It's pretty much people are pretty much convinced that you're not going to be able to end it or clean up the lakes, but we might be able to control it, and that's helpful. I did attend drug court on Wednesday last week, and very interesting. That's always an inspirational thing to sit in on and find out how the court has really helped some individuals to stay clean and to get on with their lives. On Friday last week, there was a land management meeting in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, and that again dealt with a number of the issues in dealing with land issues with the diversion. But the primary thing was the recommendation that we to contract with NDSU, which was then put forward to the authority. Then the diversion authority I sat in on that meeting at 3 o'clock or 3:30 on Friday, and there too they acted on that issue. I did something on Friday night that made me feel really old. I went to my 50th class reunion, and that was interesting. I was pleased that we had a good turnout, and there's a lot of us still alive, so that's good.
All right, is that it, John?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Frank?
Let's see, Wednesday morning, I attended Linden City Council meeting where they covered the Linden wellhead, and they found out that they're in very good shape there for their well. They got to come up with a wellhead protection plan, and the guy, George Minerick, was there and gave a good report for Linden that they got a good base on top of their water source, that they won't have to do very much. They're gonna, the plan is gonna be fairly easy for them. Wednesday afternoon, FMCOG Executive Committee, there we went over, weight lines leaving. We went over some of the procedure going on with hiring the new executive of that program. Also, we're hiring and planning a principal planner, GIS coordinator, and then we're also looking at amending bylaws to add Barnesville, Hawley, and Castleton to the group. So that was pretty much covered that meeting. Let's see. Thursday, Soil and Water Conservation District, there we pretty much covered routine stuff there. And Monday, Heartland Trail, which Grant's already covered. That was it.
Okay.
Today I had Personnel Issues Committee meeting, and I'll defer to our chair to report on that.
Okay, very good. Last week, I did also attend the briefing by the Corps for the county commission candidates. That was Tuesday afternoon, and then on Friday, we did have the Diversion Authority Board meeting, and of course, there was a number of smaller items on the agenda. We approved some material testing for that's done for in-town levees that are being constructed. And then also, probably the biggest thing was the 2015 budget was adopted, and the 2015 budget is $211,100,000, of which those monies come from Cass County sales tax, Fargo sales tax, the North Dakota State Water Commission, and some loan advances, and there are no dollars coming from the federal government and no dollars coming from Minnesota in the 2015 budget. And that budget was approved. And then, of course, the topic of the governor's visit, and just to report on, the chairman of the authority, Vanyo, and he had talked to me about this, and also to the city representative regarding the issues. And as I think most of you might have been at City Hall when the governor was here, and it was mentioned by the Oxbow mayor that he would be willing to just go along with the 100-year construction of the Oxbow-Hixon-Baki for now, as opposed to the 500-year. And going back in time a little bit, at the prior Diversion Authority meeting, Kent Lockismo from the state of Minnesota DNR was at that meeting, and he made the comment that had that been done originally, Minnesota probably would have never even raised the issue about the Minnesota EIS. And so, based on Kent's comments there, and then so in Vanyo's letter to the governor, it stated that he would go to our authority and seek approval to reduce that down to 100-year construction. And I certainly am going to support that, and I think, based on what I know, I think the full authority will support it to better, get in line with Minnesota's concerns. So hopefully that will solve that. In addition to that, there has been a recommendation that a member from the southern area be added to the authority, and I think that will also have support. So I think that will be good, where they'll actually have somebody there on the table to, and it seems to me that we did that a while back when it was the Metro Flood State Work Group. When the issues were up in the north end, we brought somebody on that, and it certainly does help. So that's, and I think it was in part of what he said was in today's paper, and the governor was encouraged by the consolations made by Chairman Vanyo, but he did say actions speak louder than words, and I agree with him that we need to be able to prove that too, and moving forward that we'll cooperate. And the governor did also state, according to the news article, that he is going to work hard also to make sure that the Minnesota DNR speeds up the environmental review process. Because once that's done, that's going to be a clear indication as to is that alignment going to stay where it's at? Is the Minnesota DNR going to suggest a different alignment? Those things will come May. But for now, it's as opposed to a couple weeks ago. I think we're trying to get things smoothed over, and it appears to be somewhat improving there. So. And then this morning we had the PIC meeting, and we had a few issues there. Let's see, the main issue that we're dealing with is the the para issue, which I'm going to call Darren up in just a second. Come on up anyway, Darren, if you want to come up. We did review the, as you may know, HR has been going through all the PDQs for the entire county, and he updated us on the status of how that's going. We did have some preliminary discussions on the auditor, treasurer, and the recorder positions, moving from elected to appointed, and the processes that would be followed for that. But I think the item that I wanted Darren to update the board on today was the issue regarding the para, which, if you recall here a few weeks ago, we voted in favor of the majority option. So Darren, if you want to.
Okay. So what happened was everybody's, well, not everybody, but the counties submitted their preference on either majority or divided vote, which you guys did it probably last month. And what ended up happening was that 36% of the counties either abstained from voting or didn't vote at all. And of those 36% of the counties, it included 60% of the correctional officers. So really only 40% of the correctional officers, their counties responded with either a majority vote or a divided vote. So on August 20th, they went back to, para went back to the Social Security Administration, and they had a discussion, a phone call, and the Section 218 is still required, the referendum is still required, but what they decided was that each county can do their own thing based on what they would prefer. So this is probably a good thing for us because we're more in charge of our destiny now. And based on what your vote was before, I would assume that we would still do the majority vote, and it would just be for our county, so we're not relying on the rest of the 2,900 correctional officers to decide whether we have a majority or divided vote and whether we participate in Social Security or not. It would just be for our county alone. And so that was one of the changes that they made. The other change is they added 30 days to the voting process. So really the vote will be in January instead of December now. So that gives us a little bit more time to get the information out to our correctional officers. They're supposed to have it for 90 days before they vote. And para is in the process of updating all their templates on the notice of referendum and some informational pamphlets for the correctional officers before they take this vote. And so that should be, I got to check the website this week. They said it should be updated this week. We'll get that information out to them in October, and then they will have the opportunity to either come up to HR and ask any questions if they want, or the para or the Social Security Administration will also be available for questions from the correctional officers if they have any and that we can't answer. And then we'll have the vote in by the January 30th.
So the action that we had taken by supporting the majority vote, when it goes to the correction officers and they do their vote, and if they were to choose an alternative to what our board had originally done, we have the ability to go back then and agree with them.
Well, basically it would be an all or nothing vote for our correctional officers if we do the majority vote. It does allow us the capability to rescind that and do a divided vote.
But my point though, Darren, is that if all the correction officers, when they do their vote, all decided on the, what's the other one called? The
divided vote? Divided
vote. If they all wanted that, our county board could go along with that. Am I correct with that?
Yes. The thing is that the way I read it, that they don't necessarily get a vote on the method of voting. They just get if we decide it's a divided vote, then whoever wants to have Social Security taken out and or contributed, and those who don't want to have it contributed, that would be their vote.
They can choose.
Yes.
But the way we've done it now is everybody will.
Correct. If we get 50% or 51% of the correctional officers saying, yeah, we want to continue with Social Security contributions, then everybody would be having the same thing.
Okay. Right.
Mr. Chair,
what the counties did was only input to.
It was,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that isn't binding. what
But
the
I
counties
guess
did.
my point being is I would like to see our county, it really is a union issue.
It's an employee issue.
It's an
yes,
it's an
yes.
employee issue.
Yes,
And.
that's exactly right.
Because there's really not a cost to the county. Well, there's a little bit of a cost on a percent, well, we do it.
No
anyway.
additional cost, we do it anyway.
Yeah,
That's
there's no
exactly
additional
right.
cost anyway, so it's just a matter, and that's my point, is so if they, right now, we took the position in advising para that we
There
would
you
like
go.
to see the majority.
Correct.
But if our employees turn around and say, well, we want the divided, then I think our board would want to support the divided.
And it allows you the flexibility to do that.
That was what I was trying to
Yep.
do. All right. All right.
So,
That's, any questions of, that's kind of where we're at. So it's more of a, it's gone to a county-by-county decision and
extended by a month.
thanks, dear.
Good? All right. Thank you.
Okay, Brian?
Several of the things have already been discussed. The one thing that we would need, the annual, AMC Annual Conference is coming up December 7th through the 9th. I'm not sure if Vicki has reserved a block. Oh, yeah, of course she has. Reserved a block of rooms, but probably if we could get confirmation, or you thinking about whether you're going to attend or not, that would be great.
Where is that at this year?
It's in St. Cloud.
St. Cloud, okay.
Yeah, which is kind of nice. So if we could give you some feedback on that, we'd appreciate that. The diversion update, I do have several of the handouts that the Army Corps of Engineers left with me after that briefing of the candidates. If you don't have one and you want one, or want more of them, please feel free to take those. All four of the commissioner candidates did attend that, and the Army Corps of Engineers was represented by Brett Coleman and Terry Williams, and I think all of you are familiar with that. And the AE2S was Rocky Schneider. He's contracted by the diversion, by the diversion for educational purposes. Mark Bittner attended the meeting. He's with the City of Fargo, an engineer, and myself were the other people in the room that tried to, I guess, listen and offer observations if they need to be. What they went over was the history and the need and what has been done, and the fact that it was a downstream look first, and I thought it was really well covered. I hope you guys enjoyed that. The AIS tour that we went on, and it turned out to be a lot of training in it too. That afternoon session, cripes after we got back in the classroom, I think we were in there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, weren't we? And it really did cover it well. And the one thing that, and it's been my question in my mind about these zebra mussels, how are you going to stop them? And they realize that, and the theory is trying to control the spread of them until they develop something that will probably combat the zebra mussels, and that is the whole emphasis of it, and I think that's a reasonable approach. Steve Larson's been before you. We met with him, he and Lori, in regards to us, met with Joe Olson on some issues. Snow removal is one of them we've been talking about, and how that's going to be handled. We met with Nancy Gunderson, our assessor, and Moorhead last Thursday afternoon in regards to a tax court issue. So next week, we will probably be asking you folks for a closed session to discuss strategy and how we approach that. You remember you've had tax court cases in the past, and it can involve a lot. Legal fees and your approach to it and things. So hopefully we'll close next week and discuss with the city how we're going to approach that.
Is this a property within the city of Moorhead?
Yes, it is. Yes. We had a meeting in regards to unemployment issues with HR Monday morning. Jennifer and Darren and I had yesterday at noon had a conference call reference some diversion issues in funding and strategies and things along those lines. And then PIC was well covered this morning. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Vicki, anything for us today?
You should probably come up with a date if you want to meet the first weekend in December, because you'll be at AMC on the 7th or 8th.
Yep. The 9th, isn't it?
9th is our meeting date, yeah.
Yeah, 9th is usually the day.
And you will
You've
be
already
done at
decided
noon.
to meet on on the evening of the 2nd for your truth in taxation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you are done at noon in St. Cloud with that AMC if you wanted
On
to. look.
Tuesday?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Can we meet Wednesday?
Yeah, let's see.
Wasn't there something on that sheet about Wednesday too? Is that meeting going on Wednesday?
An AMC meeting or?
No, Mr. Chair, there isn't. It starts Sunday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it goes-
And then it goes to Tuesday
Yeah,
noon,
that's still
I
Tuesday.
believe.
My mistake, I'm sorry, I thought I saw something for
Well,
Wednesday.
I think,
Or Tuesday at 3, it says it concludes.
Otherwise, either Wednesday or Thursday morning, I would think we could.
does Wednesday the 10th work?
Works for me.
Okay, all right, can we plan for Wednesday? Gonna plan at 8:30 again?
Sure.
All right. Okay, anything else? If not, we are adjourned.